Welcome to the joint budget decision session of the Executive Member for Housing and Safer Neighbourhoods and the Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities. I'm Councillor Denise Craghill, and we also have here Councillor Darryl Smalley and a number of officers. So agenda item 1 is declarations of interest. I don't have any declarations of interest. Do you have, Councillor Smalley?
I don't, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And then agenda item 2 is public participation, and we do have one speaker for public participation, who is Councillor Fenton. So Councillor Fenton, if you would like to speak now on agenda item 3, clearly, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on the budget proposals for the next financial year. I'm sure I won't be the only person today who will mention the significant pressures facing all councils across the country, with demand for services rising and national support falling. And whilst I know this has left executive members facing some extremely difficult decisions in this budget, I'm pleased to see that investment continues to be delivered to meet residents' needs. I'm pleased in particular to see the proposals which continue to invest significantly in our housing stock with a £9.9 million capital maintenance budget. This is an area of the council's activity which residents quite rightly see as a priority. It's also good to see progress recognised following the £2 million capital investment, which in turn has attracted over £5 million in grant funding to deliver energy efficiency improvements in council housing and in privately owned and rented housing in the city, all helping to reduce carbon emissions and tackle fuel poverty in many York homes. While we're all aware of the pressures facing heritage and cultural organisations in York and across the UK, I'm particularly pleased to see proposals outlined in this report to continue the council's investment in York's libraries and leisure and cultural provision at a time when many other councils are reducing services. And as we know, these services have been particularly valuable in the past 20 months, where residents have been able to connect and access support. Investment in ward committees has been an important way for councillors and ward teams to support communities through this difficult time. And I'm in my own ward, for example, we've been able to provide financial support for food and activity packs, and also invest in local open spaces, which have become even more of a haven for people during the pandemic. Ward grants have been well utilised throughout the pandemic, with over 40 grants totalling more than £55,000 distributed to community groups within the first 12 months of the pandemic. And I'm very happy to see this crucial investment in our communities continue, despite the significant pressures facing York and indeed all local authorities across the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fenton, for your comments, which we will, of course, take into account. So moving on to agenda item 3, the financial strategy 2022-23 to 2026-27. I think, Debbie, are you going to introduce the item?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a brief overview. So this report provides background information for the overall financial strategy, and it presents the draft proposals for savings, growth and capital for both these portfolios. The proposals have again been prepared in the context of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, that impact being a continued financial challenge and that uncertain economic outlook. So the council continues to face that unprecedented financial challenge, and this has generated an in-year pressure that you'll be aware of that's been reported to executive in the usual finance and performance monitoring reports. And the details of our individual council funding for grants and things from government should be announced today, actually, because it's the provisional local government finance settlement, and it's due to be announced later on today by written statement. However, it's still not clear, even today, whether that's going to be a one-year settlement or a multi-year package of measures that further adds to the uncertainty and just makes that medium, longer term financial planning that little bit more complex. And so the overall financial strategy may need to change from what's presented here, depending on the outcome of that settlement, which we'll know later today or tomorrow. So the key assumptions that underpin the overall council budget are a council tax increase of 1.99% plus a further 1% that is ring-fenced to adult social care. We've further identified pressures requiring additional budget of around about £12 million. So added to the council tax increase, that leaves a budget gap of just over £7 million that we've has had to be found from identifying budget savings. And again, as in last year's budget process, the requirement from the council's perspective has been around maintaining that stable financial position whilst dealing with the ongoing and increasing pressures that we're seeing in both adults and children's social care. And again, you'll, I'm sure, both be aware that that's a national issue and certainly not something that's unique to York. So annexes to the report outline the detailed proposals for both these portfolios and also include a summary of the consultation responses received to date, and you've been asked to consider the proposals in the context of the overall budget.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add, Pauline or Patrick? You don't have to, but...
No, nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, no.
Yeah, it was really just to say in terms of the individual portfolios, the vast majority of the budgets will remain the same. This report only considers the changes that are happening, the growth and the savings. The savings in Annex 1 total 337,000 for the general fund. And in Annex 2, the growth accounts to £443,000 to cover the pay award. There's also £30,000 for an access officer, which was agreed as recommendation from the Foot Street reports that you considered at the executive in November. It's also worth pointing out there are some identified savings shown up for the housing revenue account. When taking into account the changes from rent increases and the savings, the HRA will broadly be in line with what was agreed as part of the 30-year business plan last financial year.
Thank you for that. So Councillor Smalley, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions, thank you, Chair, but just a few comments. I'll keep them brief, partly because I won't be able to speak at full council tonight if I lose my voice throughout today. It's just to, I guess, thank officers, in particular Debbie, Pauline and of course Patrick and everyone behind the scenes for producing and going through all of these reports and proposals. I know, just how much work goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we can get them out ready in December, giving a long period for the public to scrutinise and see the proposals heading towards budget council in February. And obviously in my portfolio, really pleased to see that yet again, many of those leisure, cultural and heritage services that the public speaker mentioned are being protected. I guess this comes at a time when both nationally and in other bits of local government, we see them, they're often an easy target for closures and reductions in services. And in a city like York, I know residents are rightly very proud of our offer in terms of from library services to cultural services, just how much we have on our doorstep. And then latterly, just to say, obviously pleased that the COVID Recovery Fund proposal in terms of ward funding continues. Obviously, especially in the news in the last few days and weeks, the pandemic certainly isn't over and the impact on communities is still being felt very, very, very sharply. And I look forward to working with Pauline, Charlie and the communities team to make sure that funding is used as swiftly and as appropriately as possible to support communities continue to recover throughout the pandemic. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. And I just have a few comments to add. I think, as officers have said, despite all the budget challenges that we are facing, this council and most other councils, this budget is about maintaining overall financial stability of our core council services, whilst also protecting the capacity we need to take action in other areas. So whilst whilst it does include 12.4 million additional revenue funding in children's and adult social care, which is so important, it also protects work on things like tackling the climate emergency, supporting new skills and training, local communities, initiatives on holiday hunger, and also investing in the York Financial Assistance Scheme to support those of our residents who are struggling the most. I think in my own portfolio area specifically, the General Fund Housing and Safer Neighbourhoods budget represents nearly 2.5 million of direct council spending on services such as homelessness prevention, rehousing, supporting tenants in the private rented sector, energy efficiency, and adapting homes so residents can remain independent for as long as possible, as well as the council's antisocial behaviour hub. So this is alongside the additional specialist government funding that our teams in housing are so good at attracting, from the Rough Sleeper initiative to fund to lead on improving to other funding that improves standards in the private rented sector, and 5 million of extra funding for energy efficiency work, as Councillor Fenton referred to. And all of that helps to make the council's own spending go even further. And as Patrick mentioned, there's also alongside that the housing revenue account, which includes £8 to £9 million every year in major improvements to the council's housing stock. As well as the capital programme investment that this budget supports to progress the delivery of our new zero carbon homes. Finally, I'd just like to mention that the consultation feedback. I'm really glad that we've been able to begin public consultation somewhat earlier this year and to get these decision sessions into the public domain before Christmas. And I would like to thank the staff for all the work that has gone in to achieving that. I know it's been a lot of hard work. And I'm also glad that we have had at least one focus group for members of the public to take a more in-depth look at the council's budget. And I'd like to thank the people who took part in that and the others who were enthusiastic to take part. And I do think we can do more on that in future, generally in terms of public participation. So I look forward to us doing more on that. And it's also important to note that while not everyone has the same view, as you can see in Annex 3, the general drift of that public feedback is in keeping with the priorities that we are reflecting in this budget. So having said all that, we are looking at approving option 1, page 59, paragraph 5, to retain the savings, growth and capital proposals as set out in Annex 1, 2 and 4. You're in agreement with that, Councillor Smalley, I assume?
I am. I'll nod and say yes.
Thank you. So I think that completes agenda item 3. I don't believe we have any urgent business under item 4. So that completes the meeting. Thank you very much.